Hello and welcome to this video. This is part 6 in the Heaven Official's Blessing review series, I guess, which means we have gotten to the book that I have received multiple warnings about before going into it, and that is book 6, Body in Abyss, Heart in Paradise. And I very much needed the support wishes. So I thought that book 4 was bad. I thought that was like heart-wrenching. It was so sad to me. And this one just took that and just decided to amp it up. So just like all the other videos, this one will be diving into major spoilers for this book. So if you haven't already read it and you want to, maybe pause the video and come back once you have finished reading it and join the discussion. So we end book 5 with Xie Lian and 𝕬𝕟𝕟 in the final kind of temple to see the murals, and end with 𝕬𝕟𝕟 saying that there's somebody in there with him. So they're trekking up the mountain, and then they see two familiar faces who are arguing, and it already starts out kind of weird because when 𝕬𝕟𝕟 sends a silver butterfly and listens to them, he seems like super upset about what he's hearing. So already it's kind of weird, like what's happening. Then the avalanche happens. Xie Lian wakes up. He's in this weird cave. He finds 𝕬𝕟𝕟 and he's like, what is this place? And 𝕬𝕟𝕟's like, I don't know. And already that's kind of weird because this entire series he's been like the knowledgeable one. Like I saw a post online that said 𝕬𝕟𝕟's entire character is just to be attractive and know everything. And I think that's pretty spot on, but I would also add being protective of Xie Lian to that list. So this entire section dealing with the caves, like especially like in the first part of it, made me super weary of 𝕬𝕟𝕟, and his actions were just like really weird, and they didn't feel natural to the rest of his character that I've read before, and I was worried that this wasn't actually him. I thought that it was someone disguised as him that was going to like hurt Xie Lian or something. It's weird because like he says he doesn't know this place, but it's very clear he does because he's like blindly going through these places, and Xie Lian's just like, oh, if we don't know where we're going, like why are you going there? And he's just like, well, we don't know the layout, so why not? And it's just super weird, and him trying to like keep him away from the other two. It was just a lot was happening. Him trying to like leave the generals behind. Then all of a sudden them grabbing Xie Lian and running away from him, and him still being like, what are you doing? Like, why are you leaving him? And then being like, what is wrong with you? He's insane. And at that point I was with them because he was kind of creeping me out. I'm just like, what is happening? Like, why is he acting like this? It's really creepy. So that entire section was super weird. A lot happens, but one thing that like I didn't see coming, but like I should have, was the fact that the junior officials were the general's clones. And like I had even noted in one of my earlier reviews, I was just like, they act so similar to like the generals of their houses. I'm just like, that's so weird. They act just like them. Because it's them, and I was stupid. And then like we get the pearl is back. Apparently 𝕬𝕟𝕟 had it the entire time, and that's where it went missing. It wasn't mooching like he was getting accused of. We know at this point that we're in a cave of 10,000 gods, and it's used for like worship or cultivation. When mooching very easily recognized that all of these are Xie Lian, my first thought was, please don't let this be a creepy cave that 𝕬𝕟𝕟 was just making statues in Xie Lian's likeness. And yeah, no, in this first part none of my wishes came true. They were all Xie Lian. And then it gets worse because there's murals on the wall, and you realize that the silk was not, what did they say, spider silk, and it was his butterflies, and everything's coming together, and it's getting creepier and creepier. And I don't know what the last mural was that Fengxing and Muqi wouldn't let Xie Lian see, but I'm very curious on how bad it was based on their reaction. So all through that, and between that and then White No Face coming back, and he has the power to like take on two heavenly officials at the same time, and he's not even at his like full strength, is kind of terrifying. We have all this stressful stuff happening, and then right in the middle of that, we get like the little confession with the cover scene as they're running away. Well, at least we have some progress here, I guess, in the middle of running for your lives. So I guess we take what we could get. We go through all of the hassle, that weird kind of, for me, it read like a little lull to where they were like trying to leave the cave and everything. And then we get to the top of the mountain and they're at the kiln. And they finally have their real like first kiss, to where it's not like dealing with something else, like passing spiritual energy, air, nothing. So I guess kiss before jumping into battle. And then they jump in, and only Xie Lian ends up in the kiln, and White No Face, and Hua Chang's trapped outside, and I'm just mentally preparing for this epic battle, and I'm ready for shit to go down. And what do we get? Arc 4. So I was not prepared for everything that happens in Arc 4. This is the part that people were warning me about. This was where all of the trauma happens. Like, I thought Book 4 was bad. No, Arc 4. Arc 4 is bad. This takes place right after the kingdom of Xianle falls. Yong'an has taken control. Xie Lian is banished, and Fengxin and Muqing and his parents are kind of on the run because Yong'an soldiers are hunting them down. So you have all that going on. And then we have just, I called this part just the arc where Xie Lian runs a marathon to get away from his feelings, because every other chapter he was running from something. He sprints away. So it did have really good parts that really kind of made things flow better in my mind from how like the plot was going. And this is never confirmed outright, but I'm realizing that things don't get outright said in this. It's a lot of interpreting and not being stupid. Like a comment told me earlier before I started recording this that Yin was the shackled servant in Ghost City in book 2, and I feel like I knew that at one point when I was reading it. I'm just like, oh yeah, the servant, that was the spy, when you mentioned being a spy, but then I completely forgot it the next minute because no one named that random servant. So stuff like that, to where it's very obvious there's a connection, but because it's not explicitly said, I completely overlook it. So I'm assuming that this is where Fengxin meets, I am blanking on her name, the mother of the spirit fetus. I'm assuming this is where they meet because it's in Yong'an, it's after the fall, and like he's out like really late, so I'm assuming like part of that spent busking and the other half is spent with her. And maybe him asking Xie Lian like, hey, do you have anything to pawn? Like, I need some money. Maybe that was for her. That's my speculation. Let me know if you agree. Don't tell me if I'm like right or wrong if it like is said like later on, but just like, does that, I feel like that makes sense, right? So he's basically trying to like make everything work, and he has to go through and do all this training because the entire goal of the group is for him to train and ascend again. That way the 3 of the former officials can go back up, because all 3 of them were kind of banished together. They're basically just trying to go around and find work, and that's a lot of like what this chapter is like them like working and busking. And we also get the first post-war, post-Hua Chang living interaction between them when Xie Lian stops the merchant from selling the little spirits in the ghost light lanterns, and he frees all of them. So I thought that was just a very sweet thing that he did, because he didn't want the nefarious spirits to attach to the children, and he let them go. And then Hua Chang wanted to stay. He was staying with them. And at least I'm smart enough now that I've been reading the series that I didn't need someone to point out that the little flame that kept saying the key phrases like, I'll always follow you, like you have followers, and like all that stuff. At least I'm not dumb enough to overlook that anymore. We're calling this progress. The further I get into this, the more I'm connecting things on my own. So probably one of the most annoying parts in this section is dealing with the dad. So the dad, who still thinks like he's the king and rules everything, is so like ungrateful for like what Xie Lian's doing for him, and that when the queen finally states like, hey, your dad is like coughing up blood, like he needs medicine, he's still fighting him. And when Xie Lian's like, why did you let it wait this long to, like, you let it get to this point to where now it's like really worse and we could have just found a simple solution before. He's like, how are you talking to me like this? Like, what a tone, and blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, at that point I was like, just let him die. Just let him die. Like, I'm so done with him. He's so egotistical and like puts like, I don't know, his pride above his health. Like, just let him die. And that sentiment that I have even goes further when we get a little further into the book, and I'm gonna get sad there. And so then like we just get like a bunch of moments of like the hardships that they're going through, like Mooching deciding to leave. That was very hard to watch, even though I kind of knew he was gonna be the first one to leave. It was still really hard reading that part. And so all this stuff is happening, and then we actually see him. This is like the beginning of like chipping away at his impending mental breakdown that happens. And so the scene to where he runs off, gets drunk in the cemetery, and falls into the grave, the dug grave. And then you have little baby flame Hua once again returning and trying to help him up, and like every time it like says that, oh, the ghost flame like tried to get close to him and tried to heat him up and stuff, like I'm just like, man, the devotion is there. He's trying so hard, even at like the lowest like spirit level. He's just a little ghost fire, and he's trying so hard. And then like the next like big scene that my brain keyed in on was when he finally decides like he's gonna train and he's going to do good and he's going to ascend again. He's gonna like actually focus. And so he travels all this way to this spiritual filled land, and then these 30 heavenly officials try and kick him out because they're scared of him. They're just like, well, we can't all be here. So what? 30 is fine, but 31 is the cutoff? Like, no, they're scared because they know that Xie Lian's better than them. And so, yeah, they can't. And reading him picking a fight and beating them with a tree branch, I physically shouted when I read that. I was so happy that he wasn't being passive in this situation, and he was fighting to stay there. And I was so happy. I was like, he's gonna beat them, and then he's going to be able to train. And then no, because they have to call Mooching, and that's how we figure out that he's been accepted back. So I believe he's in the lower courts starting there, and I could be wrong. But that scene to where he just stands there, and then he cuts the branch and tells him to leave, and then has the nerve to say, I didn't face you. Like, you told him to leave, and being like, well, I can't go against them, blah, blah, blah. That was really annoying, and I was kind of hoping he would stay longer and kind of explain. But we never really get a good explanation from him. Like, we can interpret. He didn't want to stay suffering with the other two, so he just decided to go back to the upper court. Or lower court. I think he's with the lower court. So that, I know that he has his valid on his part reasonings, but it was still really annoying to see him and then see him back in like the cabin that they were using after. But in between those two parts, somehow we see White No Face, who shows up so much in this. It was super weird to see White No Face act tenderly towards Xie Lian and basically just being like, I want you on my side, I want some more, and like trying to like drill it into his head, like, come over to the dark side type deal. And then like I didn't think that could get any worse, and then the temple happens to where after White No Face has haunted him and drove him mad, like you literally see him like breaking down his sanity bit by bit. You see him commit theft, just straight up theft. After his failed attempt at robbery, he didn't actually successfully rob someone. And I hate that no one brings that up, that it was a failed robbery and he just said, give me your stuff. Like, he couldn't actually do it. So that was super annoying that they acted like he like robbed someone at gunpoint or something. But then he actually goes and robs a house and commits theft. And it very much feels like he did that solely to push Fengxian away. And it totally just feels like he did that because he was afraid of Fengxian leaving on his own like 𝕞𝕠𝕣, and so he needed to push him away himself. That was like him telling him to leave instead of his friend leaving him on his own. I don't know. That was just a very sad moment, and that is not even the saddest part in the book. That's like, I don't know, the third one? I don't know. The main two are coming up soon. Like, those hurt. So then, what is the order of this book? Okay, I'm not questioning the order of what happens because all of this book is just jumbled in my head because I read it so fast. Wait, no, he couldn't have. The temple scene comes before him leaving because 𝕚𝕚 gets made the morning after Fengxian leaves. So, oh my god. So you have like the second saddest scene, the third saddest, and wait, no. First, third, second. And so then like the saddest part that I'm not realizing happened before him kicking out Fengxian. Him running away because no one believes that he's actually being hunted down by White No-Face. They just think that he's exhausted and is kind of losing it. And he runs away and wants to face him head on. And so he ends up in one of his dilapidated temples. And all these people show up, and there's people with human face disease. And then he goes and chases after White No-Face and then wakes up tied to the altar. And then this was totally just to destroy his last bit of sanity and break his trust in people, to prove that people will do anything when pushed far enough. And this was definitely the most heartbreaking scene for me, with half a page just typing out him screaming for help and that it hurts when he's being stabbed repeatedly by his former followers. And so that, plus the illustration, it was, you open it and you have him pleading in his head that he wants to die, and then you have him being held down and stabbed repeatedly. That was, I think that takes the cake for most painful thing to read in the series so far, and I hope nothing beats it because I'm tired of the sadness. I just want happiness for them now. And my question for this part was, he's a god still. He's not gonna die because Junwoo gave him immortality, essentially. To not catch or cure human face disease, you have to kill someone. So does it count if they stab Xie Lian fatally? Like, they go for what, like the heart, the neck, the stomach? And like those are all like fatal places, but he doesn't actually die, but it does cure them. I'm just wondering how that works. And this is also the part to where seeing the person that he worships in so much pain, this is when we see baby ghost fire 𝕚𝕚𝕟 evolve and turns into a wrath and blows everyone up. So I want to know how powerful this kid is. It doesn't really give a description of him, I think, after he gets this upgrade. And later on, after like Xie Lian has broken down and sided with White No-Face and takes the mask and becomes the White Calamity, he goes and raises all the spirits, and 𝕚𝕚𝕟, taking the name 𝕚𝕚𝕟 for not having a name, is there, and the only one in like a physical form, because everything else is like a spirit that gets shoved into his sword. I guess it's the same form because, well, Xie Lian is, I think he's passed out at that point, so he doesn't see him transform. But also, oh my god, in between that, there's so many, my brain is, this is not a straight plot line in my head. So we missed the second most grueling thing. And in between the scene of him getting stabbed by 100 swords and him raising the spirits. And that is him, that's when he sends off Fengxian. And the next morning, the dream that starts off Arc 4 comes back like everyone knew it would, but no one wanted it to. And he wakes up to find his parents hanging. And then, in such a state of grief after running and seeing people's joy during a celebration, he goes back and tries to do it himself and fails because he can't die. And this actually is the conception of 𝕚𝕚𝕟 as his spiritual device, and the juxtaposition of such horrible regret and like heavy negative emotion that was involved in the creation of him or her. What is Rory? They, them, and the Rory being such like a gentle natured spiritual weapon it's a very shocking juxtaposition. And so that was reading how Ryu came to be, like, that's messed up. Like, I was not expecting that. I knew it was bad whenever, I forget who says it, but someone says, oh my god, like, you have such a cool spiritual device, I want one. And Xie Lian responds with, no you don't. If you knew how they came to be, you wouldn't want one. So I knew it was bad. I didn't realize it was this bad. So that was the second hardest one to read, all of that, and like the grief and everything of now he's completely alone. So yeah, all of like those terrible moments are kind of in just like this middle chunk right here, and they're all like back to back to back. So you are also just getting stabbed in the heart, theoretically. So now he's a calamity and he's gone and he is awoken the spirits, and he has now 𝕚𝕟, who is like his personal like guard, I guess. And then he goes, and I almost forgot that there is an entire part to where he goes and kills Xie Lian, who is now the ruling king of Yong'an, slices him up, even though he dies of natural causes because he has human face disease. He's dead. They kill his nephew, who is the crown prince, and sets the palace on fire in the name of revenge, because this is his villain arc. And so then we have the whole kind of situation to where he's like, I'm going to release human face disease on Yong'an, and they're going to pay for what they did to my kingdom and my people, and they're going to burn. And he's like just fully just revenge and vengeance and destruction. And he's just completely like gone insane. And we even see like he's like completely lost his mind, because even seeing the flower that 𝕚𝕟 leaves him, he like is just so upset by it. He's enraged and he's like, why is this here? Someone's playing a prank on me. And 𝕚𝕟's like, maybe you still have devoted followers in places. And he's like, that's stupid. And so that was, you know, that he has just completely lost it in this kind of ending part of this section. I don't understand why he stabs himself. I'm assuming that indicates that if by the full moon in 3 days he has not passed it along to someone else, then that's why it goes after him. I'm not fully sure. Is that something that I misread, or is my interpretation the right thing? Let me know, because luckily comments have been very nice on correcting me or giving me information about what I've missed. Because first read through, I'm so glad other people agree that first read throughs are kind of rough with all the information. And I do want to go reread the series to figure out what I missed and like connections that I overlooked and stuff. So yeah, thank you for everyone who's being very kind to me and helping me connect all the story. I appreciate that. So then he falls in the middle of the street and is just in a like caved human shape in the street, and no one helps him because they recognize that he is a god of misfortune. Basically, we just get him like sitting there for like 2 days until like it's time for it to release, and like White No Face comes and they have a fight, and the disease comes down, and he's like, here, take this and stab me, and like it's the only way, and like no one will do it. And then they're just like, actually, we'll do it, we don't want to die. And then the water merchants just like, you should all be ashamed of yourselves, like nobody helped him and now you're going to stab him. And like this whole debacle starts, and then Xie Lian takes it as his own curse. And then I want to know, how powerful is this kid? Because 𝕚𝕟, who only recently became a wrath level ghost, just takes the entirety of human face disease and takes the curse in place of Xie Lian or any people of Yong'an, and it disperses his soul. I forget the word that they exactly used for it, but they say that he's gone, but obviously you know he's not actually gone. But like that's so sad, and like you see the heartbreak when Xie Lian realizes that his last devoted follower just gave his life for him, And also that proves that Hatang was actually being serious when he said, I would die for you. So like I'm saying, the devotion is there. And then of course, like, we get the ending scene that's kind of more lighter hearted. We get 𝕬𝕝 coming down, taking out White No Face, who doesn't die. This was where they kept talking about 𝕬𝕝 taking him out, and he doesn't die again. They thought he was dead once, now they think he's dead twice. He's still not, because in the present timeline, he's still there. And then we also figure out what happened with, like, the speedrun to banishment with his second ascension. And now that I actually know what happens, I actually find it incredibly funny. And it's basically, 𝕬𝕝 was like, welcome back to heaven, like, you've earned ascension again. And he's like, hey, can you banish me, actually? Can you do me that favor? And so he's like, I can't just banish you. And so he's like, you know what? We never had that rematched fight. And so he just ascends, runs straight to the Palace of Divine Might, and they just brawl it out. And now that I know that, that is actually one of the funniest ways to ascend and get banished in like 30 minutes. But then he also asks for that shackle, locks all of his spiritual power away, which he can't, I don't know. But then he also asks for all of his luck to be gone. And so he actually becomes a god of misfortune. And my camera's gonna die, so I gotta wrap this up fast. And so then we get like the pictures towards the end of like him on the construction site, shows off his bad luck, and shows him leaving and seeing a red flower and saying something along the lines of, I hope we meet again. That is just such a sweet way. It wraps it up. So arc 4 wraps up very nicely, but arc 3 ends with the cliffhanger. And so now, like, I desperately want to get on to book 7 and finish reading that to like figure out what happens to the Killen and everything. So I'm very, very excited. So to wrap this up before my camera dies, I thought this book was great. It ripped my heart out. I was very emotional during it. Highly recommend it if you want to feel like you're getting your heart stabbed 1,000 times. So, like normal, if you've interacted with this, let me know, what were your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did you want to add something that I missed? Leave it down in the comments below. I love reading them. People have been so nice and so helpful. But yeah, that's about all I have time to say before my camera dies. So thank you everyone who watched. I hope you got something out of this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!